Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to PSG of Mercer County. If you're visiting us for the first time, just found us or heard about us, special welcome. Glad that you're able to join us. You don't need to dry your eyes or change your glasses. I am indeed wearing an Hawaiian shirt, as I do every Friday, to wish everyone an Aloha Friday. Welcome to our virtual meeting. And also, besides being Aloha Friday, today is National Chocolate Chip Day, which I've now decided is one of my new favorite holidays. So it doesn't seem to matter how you celebrate. You can have chocolate chip cookies or chocolate chip ice cream, chocolate chip pound cake. Just celebrate with having some chocolate chips. I do not have any chocolate chips, so next time I go shopping, maybe I'll have to go out and buy some chocolate chips. But PSG of Mercer County, we are a group that is here for you, anybody who's in any kind of career transition. It doesn't really matter why. It could be that your own organization had some sort of layoff. Could also be a furlough process that's going through now. You may have made the decision yourself to change careers, or maybe you're re-entering the workforce after some sort of personal a reason why you needed to be out of the workforce. It doesn't matter. We're here to help provide you with resources, a little bit of guidance, our weekly meetings, all to help you become for yourself a bit more efficient and effective in your own job search. We are not a recruiting organization. We don't have jobs per se, but among the resources we do have a LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group is called PSG of Mercer County, and you are welcome to join our LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group is for anyone who has been to any of our in-person meetings or now our virtual meetings. And the LinkedIn group is really meant just for us. The reason why we limit it just for us, we're really trying to keep the name collectors and the list collectors out. We want it to be a group that will really be by and for people in job search who are currently been through it or have been through it before. We have over 1,500 members in our LinkedIn group. Even if you don't have 1,500 first-degree connections, join our LinkedIn group, and you will be able to send LinkedIn emails to any of those 1,500 plus people. It's about 1,540 or so right now. And also be active, share articles, share posts. If you hear about other groups that are meeting, put that there. Maybe you got an email the other day with a terrific job that just doesn't apply to you. Copy and paste that into the LinkedIn group so others can take advantage of it. It's a way of you sharing and giving. It's also a way for you to be active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn likes us when we're active. It ranks us a little higher in the search results when people are searching for someone like us in LinkedIn. In addition, we have our website. Our website is psgofmercercounty.org. We have over 120 pages of web content. It is a big website. It is meant for, I'll call our service area, which is Mercer County and kind of the 6 border counties as our primary service area. Of course, we welcome people from anywhere to come visit us when they can, and virtually they can visit us. The reason why we kind of target that, it's our geographic area. We also have job boards pages. If you haven't seen that lately, you'll want to take a look. Our job boards pages doesn't have job listings per se, but it has links to over 2,600 companies in Mercer County and the 6 border counties. And you've heard this little joke before, even if you live overseas in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, that's a border county, and we have links there as well. So go to our job boards page, pick the county of interest, and then once you open that up, there will be up to 12 different categories like financial services, education, not-for-profits, and click in that page and you'll find the companies in that county and in that sector. At the very least, use it to create a targeted job list. You may want to be focusing on companies that are closer to home, and that may be a great way to do it. We also have 7 links, dedicated links to Indeed. And so if you click on the link for Indeed, it links to Indeed for that county. So we have a link for Indeed in Mercer County, Indeed in Burlington County, Bucks County, and so forth. So you can get a little bit more targeted with Indeed. And then once you're in Indeed, of course, you can search for the industry or role that is of interest to you. One of the things that we always like to do is celebrate. And we really, other than celebrating ourselves and having fun with the meetings, one of the things we haven't been able to celebrate for about 2 months now our landings. So what we typically do is we invite you to come up, give a little presentation or speech. We're not really going to have the venue to do that today, but if you'd like, and then of course celebrate with cookies, so maybe we can have virtual cookies or snacks together. But if you want to send in the chat and that you've recently landed, I'll pick that up a little later and recognize you for the celebration that you have. Just want to let you know some of the ground rules. I've discussed these before we got started. In a moment, I'll turn the presentation over to Michael Goldberg, and actually technically I turned it over to him. He'll turn on his presentation. He's got a slide deck along with his presentation, and his program will be about an hour or so. We are recording it. It will be available later this evening. I ask that you keep your audio on mute. I'm hearing a little bit of noise, so I'm going to have to go through that in a moment. If you have not put your audio on mute, please do so. We want to minimize any background noise, anything that might accidentally interfere with the experience. You can keep your video on, you can keep your video off. That's your preference. If you have a very busy background or fans that are going or something that could be distracting, you might want to keep it off, but there's no obligation either way. And also, Michael is going to have some pause points where we can ask questions. And I ask that you do use chat for questions. Chat is in the upper right corner of your GoToMeeting. There are a couple of icons. One icon is a couple of, looks like cartoons of people. Right now, mine says 89, so there are 89 on the call right now. And the next to that is a little circle that has like a cartoon character would be talking in. That's chat. So you click on that and the chat window opens. And so what I'll ask is that you chat your questions or type your questions right in there. Myself and Michael will be reading through those. He will be answering them. A couple of breaks during the program, and we'll of course have Q&A at the end as well. So that's the way we can make a large webinar a bit interactive, by using chat for that way. Okay, and so I think we've got everything ready, and so I will just like to say then, I am just so pleased to welcome our presenter this morning, Michael Goldberg. Michael has helped thousands of business owners, including financial advisors, insurance agents, brokers, bankers, hedge fund managers, attorneys, and accountants generate hundreds of thousands of dollars through knockout networking and referral strategies. His firm, Knockout Networking, helps professionals like a boxer might do in a ring, make more and better connections through networking. Michael's online training program, Knockout Networking University, is licensed through corporate offices of major financial services firms for use by sales producers in the field company-wide. Clients include Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Griffin Capital, Guardian Life, Northern Trust, SAP, and Lakeland Bank. When he's not speaking at conferences or sales meetings, Michael is an award-winning adjunct professor at Rutgers University, and he also donates his time to speak to networking groups focused on job search. Michael has a weekly blog, 3-Minute Rounds, which reaches thousands of subscribers, and a brand new book, Knockout Networking for Financial Advisors and Other Sales Producers. It's published by Wiley and is now available on Amazon. So ladies and gentlemen, weighing in at 180 pounds, Michael Goldberg.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you very much for the kind intro. I appreciate it, David, and the thoughtful way that you kind of set this whole thing up.
All right, I'll find that noise.
Find that noise, David. Hopefully it's not me.
So it's caller 7. Okay, we're good. I'll check all through the program as I hear.
All right, very good. Now I'm looking at a window with everybody's faces, and I think I want to either minimize that or eliminate that. That's not going to cut me off here, right? Because I just want to be able to see slides.
At the top of your screen, there's something that says view everyone, and you can drop that down. You can hide everyone if you'd like.
Hide everyone, hide webcams. All right,
for the rest
so we'll
of us,
do that.
I'm view who's talking, so I'll see a little thumbnail of Michael. And all right, everyone, you can do as you please.
All right, very good. As you please. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm just trying to get used to GoToMeeting here. I'm usually a Zoom guy. So this is Mate, as David said. My name is Michael Goldberg, and I operate a speaking and training company called Knockout Networking. And for the past 20 years, I've been hired by some of the major, the major financial companies in helping their sales producers, whether they're financial advisors, brokers, agents, planners, what have you, grow their business through networking referrals. So I haven't just learned this stuff. I've been teaching this for 20 years, and I've been practicing my methods in terms of growing my business, right? So I've got a Knockout Networking, as David mentioned. I'm not here to pitch and sell it. I'm just going to suggest that you should probably pick it up. And the reason I'm saying that is, I mean, through a publisher, like it's not like I'm getting any of this profit or anything like that. It's for financial advisors and other sales producers. You are sales producers right now. So the ideas can apply. And the reason why I think it's important, other than it wouldn't be, a bad thing to sell a book or two, but then you're serious, right? If you have a book in front of you, a hardcover book, programs like this, you're now serious and you're more apt to be able to implement some of these ideas and make more and better connections and do some of the things that you ought to be doing, or perhaps ought to be doing more. And that's all I really care about with any program that I deliver, is that my audience, whether it's a group of financial advisors or those in between careers, that they take an idea or two, whether it's from me or from somebody else that's in the meeting, and they put it into practice, they implement it, and something good, right, comes out of it, right? Just somebody has posted that I sound like I'm coming from a mile away. Is my sound okay? So David, just double checking. Is my sound okay?
I hear you clearly. It does sound a little bit like you're in I don't know, some sort of funny background noise. Everybody else
I don't know why. During our test.
A little closer to your microphone might just be what you need.
Yeah, I mean, normally this is great. So this is kind of the first time I'm hearing this. All right, I'll see what I can do. Otherwise, I have a microphone that I could hook up if it comes down to that. Okay. And I am actually talking pretty loud, so I don't know if there's something that I need to adjust here on my sound.
Seems to be fine now.
Okay, all right, so we'll go with it. Very good. Okay. A little better, thank you. All right, so here's my pivot strategy. I just want to share that I'm the founder of two businesses. I founded Knockout Networking, which is a speaking training company. I also founded a networking group called, obviously enough, the Networking Group. So I live and breathe this stuff. And, my pivot is, I'm doing speaking. And of course, when the world kind of came to an end, March 12th or so, my whole calendar went away because they weren't having meetings anymore. So I had to very, very quickly pivot and start doing more web-based stuff. So I started, really utilizing, mediated platforms like this and virtual speaking, training, coaching, all this stuff to be able to continue to run my business and continue to operate. I've done the same thing with the networking group. I decided this was a time, this is a thriving group, thriving in New York City and Philadelphia. And since this whole March 12th thing, pandemic, went into play, I decided to up my business plan, and I launched groups in New Jersey, Long Island, Chicago, and now over the next couple of weeks, it'll be South Florida and also Atlanta. The reason I share this is because I knew that if I didn't pivot and have that kind of mentality to say, well, the world has changed, I need to do something different in order to continue to generate revenue. If I don't do that, that's not going to happen. Like, I don't put that mentality and that focus into place. And that's what I'm suggesting that you do right now, if you haven't already, is in meetings like this, really think about how you can be actionable, about talking to more and better people, be able to do what it is that you're looking to do, whether it's starting a business, landing a job, or what have you. Because it's definitely going to take a little bit of and I hate the phrase, but a little bit of a pivot mentality to be able to do that. So how to get the most value from this time, right? And some of this David mentioned is have your favorite beverage handy, whatever it is. Mine right now is kind of coffee, is my beverage of choice, but water, whatever it is, right? Try to eliminate or minimize distractions. Try to avoid multitasking. I imagine that at 80 people, some of you are multitasking. Try to minimize that with the texting, tweeting, email, the whole thing. Take notes. So this way you're prepared to ask questions and also capture some of the information. I will be leaving my slides later, so you will have access to it. Be open to learning, changing, implementing, right? It really takes an openness. Ask questions. As David mentioned, post comments in the chat box. And be committed to doing at least one thing as a result of this meeting more, better, or differently. Like really, I don't want to say waste of time. Like don't make this a waste of time. Like it's kind of fun getting together like this. And many of you know one another, and I think that's great. But really think about being intentional about doing something different that really makes this that much more worth your time. In my opinion, and having volunteered to help job searchers over the past 25 years, this is what I have noticed is why job seekers tend to struggle. I don't know if any of this applies to you, but I'm going to share it. Is there's not enough focus on what is wanted. Like what is it that you actually want? Not enough openness to direction and feedback. Not enough networking in the right places, not enough knowledge about LinkedIn and usage, right? So there's more to it than just posting, right? I'll get into a little bit of that. Not enough emphasis on giving, helping, more emphasis on talk to me, refer me, get me hired, right? So it's really about the give and the help in terms of offering it. Not enough of a plan or a daily routine, not enough accountability in place. And finally, not enough hard work towards the objective. And, you know, networking is the key, and the word work is in network, right? So it's really about the hard, I'm not saying hours and hours, but smarter, right? Being smart on how hard we work and being diligent and being focused. Basically, not enough. So this is not an image of me. I wish it was. This is Superman. But I have decided that, and this is, I think, in life anyway, but certainly now that life has definitely changed, is that there are many people that are fearful right now. They're fearful because they're not working. They're fearful because maybe they were working and now they're on a furlough or some sort of a break. The unemployment challenges, you know, the whole thing, right? Is, in my mind, fear's kryptonite is a plan. By having a plan in place, we tend to feel a little bit better because we're working towards something. The best cure for fear is simply a plan. In my mind right now, and I've been sharing this, especially with audiences of job seekers, which I'm very happy to volunteer to help, is I believe that there's 3 knockout objectives for you and your job search. And hopefully many of you, if not all of you, are doing this anyway, is managing your money, right? So in terms of managing your money, I know it sounds obvious, but I think it's helpful to keep 3 different scenarios in mind. First is, what's the worst possible scenario? What's the worst scenario? What's the best case scenario? So worst case scenario in terms of money coming in and money that you have. What's the best case scenario? And finally, what is the most likely scenario? And this is being 2 months into this, right? And what's your plan for each of these scenarios? So God forbid, worst case scenario, right? What's your plan in the event that that is the deal? Best case, what's your plan? And then what's the most likely thing to happen or continue to happen? What's your plan for that, right? So the fear's kryptonite is a plan. I think the second thing to focus on is manage your connections. I think it's really being ruthless about managing your connections. Social media followers, job search leads, prospects, centers of influence. It's about making a list, checking it twice, not managing all your connections, but who are the 50, 60, 70 most important people as it might relate to networking and landing a job, or landing a business, or a franchise opportunity, whatever it is that you're after. Who are your top 50, 60, 70 that might have a dotted line into what's interesting to you in terms of an industry or profession? And finally, being massively in service to others, which really dictates a networking mindset and behavior. So again, it's really not about that, it's about the give. And I myself have been doing lots of free online sessions, webinars, because it's really been about the give. And the result of that is some of the firms that David had mentioned earlier are actually paying me for this stuff. And that ain't bad. So 3 knockout job search, knockout job search strategies require 3 sets in my mind. There's your mindset. There's your, and just weird windows are opening in front of me here. I'm trying to make them go away here. So there's your mindset, skill set, and will set. Your mindset is your attitude, right? Your attitude towards networking or towards search or whatever it is, right? So it's your mindset, skill set, and will set. Mindset is your attitude. Skill set are the skills that you're actually practicing, the action. And the will set is to put process in place. It all comes from mindset. So this is what, in my mind, is networking mindset. It's when you're checking in with people, and again, many of you are probably already doing this. It's checking in, I think, first and foremost on people's health and safety. Like, what does that look like? Are people okay? I mean, I know firsthand, I have relatives that have gone through this whole COVID thing, and one that almost died. So this is very close to me. So I'm just naturally concerned about people. I want to just check in and make sure that people are okay and their families are okay. I'm always interested in learning. So learning about other people and how I might be a resource, offering help, asking questions, actively listening to what they're saying, being interested, providing resources, and making intros, right? To me, all of that, in no particular order, is a networking mindset. And I believe a networking mindset is key to be able to build and continue to develop your connections and your network. There are 6 reasons why we network. 6 reasons. Again, in no particular order, but I would think reason number 1 probably resonates most is to land a job. 76% of job searchers, at least before the pandemic, I don't know what the numbers are now, right, are landing interviews through networking, right? And there are still people landing interviews, virtual interviews. There are still people landing jobs. Firsthand, I see it, right? So first reason is landing a job. So again, that may sound obvious, but I think the important, I'm going to go here, is I think the important thing is being really clear on communicating the type of job that you are looking for. What industry, profession, market segment, niche, dynamic, demographic, geography. I think that's really important because if you're clear on exactly what it is that you're looking to do, you'll know where you need to go, what you need to say, and with whom you need to say it. And that's networking. Second reason why we network is to generate business, why I might network. A third reason to network is social reasons, right? So to make friends, right? So there's a social component. And networking, whatever one of your motives are, whether it's landing a job, generating business, or social, and it may be a combination, the key is knowing where you need to go, even virtually, what you need to say, and with whom you need to say it. And man, that's networking. So where to go, what to say, and with whom. Social reasons, learning something, paying it forward, and solving a very specific problem. Those are the only 6 reasons why people network. That's it. Right? So solving a very specific problem. I often share that my dad is 82 years old, lives on Long Island, he's by himself. I lost my mom about 4 years ago, so my dad's wife, obviously, right? And he hasn't been the same over the past 4 years. He went from being a very angry, grizzled, bitter guy to an even more angry, bitter, and grizzled guy. And I'm trying to figure out a way to help him because I know that if he was open to meeting people, and I know all he wants is my mom back, right? And he's just stuck in his house. But my solve a very specific problem is figuring out how to have my dad get out of his own way. Now, I'm sharing this because I'm not looking for answers right now. I'm sharing this is because I know that networking can solve almost all of life's problems, provided that you are clear on where you need to go, what you need to say, with whom you need to say it. Right? So it's important to realize that networking is a lifestyle. It is not a flip that you switch on when you're looking for a job or business or whatever it is. I believe the peripherals are always wide and networking is always on. So I live and breathe this stuff. Like I live and breathe this stuff, right? It affects my family. It affects my livelihood. It affects everything. I believe as a job searcher, that's got to be part of the networking mindset, that it's an all day, every day thing. The flip side of that coin is that those that we network are looking for one of, if not a combination of these 6 reasons why we network. So I just want to be clear, just to be able to add that context. Here's my definition of networking. It is simply, or maybe not so simply, a proactive approach to meeting people to learn and potentially help them. That's it. That's what networking is. Now, it can be reactive, right? When you're, online at the bank or food shopping, but these days it tends to be a little bit less reactive because we're doing, a lot less of that stuff. And I think less people are into chit-chatting now, through their surgical masks and everything else, right? So yes, it can be reactive. When life gets restored, it will be more reactive. But right now, it's that much more proactive in terms of meeting quality people in an effort to learn and potentially help them. Because the premise is that if you're focused on learning from and helping other people, they tend to help you back. And that ain't bad. And that's networking. So it's learning, helping. I like a second helping, learning, helping. That's networking. There's two components that need to be in place for any type of networking to take. There's got to be a very focused communication strategy, and I'm going to be mentioning several that are extremely focused and laser-like. So those strategies are really about the questions that we ask, how we speak about ourselves in the form of elevator speeches and such, and then how we follow up and stay in touch. Like, those are all communication strategies. If there's a breakdown in any of those strategies, it means that there's a breakdown in our networking approach. So you need to have sound communication strategies. Again, I'm going to go into detail, and a targeted network for you to display and demonstrate your communication strategies in the form of your networking efforts, right? So I'm assuming we have a base, right? Probably called LinkedIn, probably called people that are in our phone, right? So now it's a question of being very focused, very specific, very clear, and having an action plan about what we say and with whom. So right now, well, actually, let me just back up. Right now, I just want to very quickly open it. That's like a mouthful. And I'm not looking at the chat box, so I'm going to rely on David. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to ask at this point? I want to create a little space before I continue.
Okay, so questions haven't come in just yet. Why don't we give it just a moment or two? So this is an opportunity for anyone ask a question maybe on a prior point or slide that Michael made, and we'll get those answered right away.
Right, and I'll be doing this periodically, is creating some space. So if you're going to post questions, again, I'm not really paying attention to that because I'm relying on David. So just know I'll create this space so I can tackle whatever questions or whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay, very good.
It's been helpful. We've done in each of our presentations these kind of intermission periods. Okay, so Punita is asking, can you speak more on the communication strategy?
I will. I'm going to be continuing on that. So I've got a lot of details. I'm just setting this up.
Okay, good. So
okay, so this is a very Punita.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so this is a very ugly slide here.
Wait. There are a couple more. Michael, excuse me.
Okay. I'm opening up the floodgates here. Okay.
Yeah. What is the difference between stalking and networking? Oh, I've got my answer.
Wow.
If you're on their driveway, you're stalking them.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah, if you're behind somebody at all times, if you're constantly pounding people on LinkedIn. So networking is about collaborating. It's a two-way street, right? So it's got to be a win-win, or a win-win over time, right? It can't be one-sided. If there's stalking, and that's kind of a harsh word, but I know what you mean. It tends to be one-sided because it's not collaborative. If you feel like you're in a stalking mode, it means that you're trying to connect with somebody that simply doesn't want to connect with you. Like, they don't see the value, right? It's because there's no relationship there. There's no endorsement there. There's no perceived mutual value, right? So there's probably some of that. So for networking to take, you've got to give, which means our communication strategies have to come from a place of what I like to call we, as in you and they, right? It's got to be collaborative. It can't come from a place of me, as in you, if that makes sense, right? Got to be two-way.
Dom is asking, if you are long-term unemployed, does that change your networking strategy?
For the long term, I don't think so. I think right now, people are so hyper-focused on LinkedIn and so hyper-focused on Zoom and GoToMeeting and platforms like this, is that I think now people are just getting inundated with webinars and people contacting and all that stuff, which makes the whole collaboration thing even more important. Because I know myself, I'm constantly, people reach out to me on LinkedIn for all kinds of reasons, right? But to me, it's a filtering process, and it's really the notes that are most engaging and the most potentially collaborative are the ones that I tend to be most responsive to. And also coming from places of people that I already know or are being referred to. So those are all part of my filtering process. I know that's part of most business people's filtering process. So vast difference between stalking or what I'll call selling, like you're trying to sell yourself to somebody, which means the perceived value is that it's only like it's like a one-sided deal. Whereas if it's truly networking and there's truly the potential for a connection, it's got to be from both sides of the fence.
Okay. There's just one comment, and then we'll move on. If you could just slow your pace down a little bit. There's a lot. I think people have a lot to digest. But thank you.
Okay. Yep. That it is. Okay. And this is a little awkward for me because normally, like I'm yelling right now, so normally I don't have to do this. So if for some reason the sound quality isn't great, so I will try to slow it down and yell a little bit more clearly. All right. Here we go. So I started setting up this slide. It's not an attractive slide, but it's a very telling one. Is I defined networking as learning and helping, and it is. But the reality is that we don't connect with everybody that we meet. A revelation, I know. In my experience, and I consider myself a pretty good networker, right, is that I find that when I'm in a real room, and even some of the virtual stuff, that I truly only connect with about a third of the people that I meet. And by truly connect, I mean like you had me at hello. Like it's not that it's magic and fireworks go off, but like you just truly feel like there's a good connection and you want to talk to this person. I find it only happens about a third of the time, and I'm pretty good at this. So if I wasn't all that good, I imagine that I would connect with less people, right? So I refer to that dynamic as the one-thirder dynamic. I feel that if you're a good networker, that you probably only connect with about a third of the people, right? Now, the good news is that ones that show up as one-thirders, to you, you show up as a one-thirder to them. If you feel that connection, so do they. Now, how about the other two-thirds? Right? So if you meet 10 people, you'll probably only really connect with 3 or 4. If you meet 3 people, you only probably really connect with 1 or 2. So that leaves the other two-thirds, right? The two-thirder dynamic. That means that it's not that they hate you. It's just a great connection. It's just like, okay, there's just nothing to it for a multitude of reasons. And I'm not suggesting that that's good, bad, right, wrong. It's just what is. But here's, I guess, I don't know if it's the good news, but they don't like you either. How's that? So if somebody shows up as a two-thirder to you, you probably show up as a two-thirder to them. So here's the good news, or the really good news, is just focus on the one-thirders. If it's a one-thirder connection, you're never going to feel like you're stalking somebody because they don't feel that way, right? So focus on the one-thirders. Focus on the people that you think you have the best connections with, or that you think you potentially can have the best connections with. And the best way to meet a one-thirder is to simply be connected to or introduced by another one-thirder. So if you're on LinkedIn and you've got great relationships, see how you might leverage those great relationships for more potential great relationships. But make sure even that ask potentially goes both ways. Focus on the one-thirders. Here are some rules to networking. I kind of liken them to like the pool rules as you go to a swimming pool, like a public pool. Is and again, I'm pretty focused on this when I'm meeting people. Is share personal stories, not too personal, right? The personal stories, like if you meet somebody, even in a Zoom meeting or in a GoTo meeting or like some sort of virtual setting, nice to meet you. Can I share a quick story with you? And maybe just share a story about an experience that happened in one of your online meetings or something that you're going through right now. Don't like totally take over the stage. I'm talking like a minute or two. And I'm not talking doom and gloom. I'm talking about a story that perhaps that person that you're speaking with can relate to. And then after your story, you can say something like, can you relate to this? Has something similar happened to you? Right? And now you're going to more likely get a connection now because you're exchanging personal stories and hopefully people can relate to. And a lot of people can relate to stories these days because all kinds of unusual things are happening right now, because of tech issues, because of just being at home, being with family, being with kids. So a lot of great stories arises out of that. I even facilitate this type of an activity in my networking meetings, right? Because it's so powerful. Share current professional stories, some things that you're focused on, right? Some things that have happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, hopefully the not too ugly, right? So it's not about complaining, right? It's really about connecting. Share solutions and ideas, nothing negative, and also look for solution and ideas. Again, nothing negative. Ask great questions, be interested and interesting. Focus on a niche market. Try to listen more and talk less when you're in meetings, because network is about learning, helping. And one of the easiest ways to learn is to listen, really try to absorb what's going on until it's your turn to talk. Create and use an elevator speech. Again, I'm going to get into detail about all this stuff, and be clear on how others can help. So you're offering to help, but be clear about how others can help, because frankly, most people don't know how they can help us unless we put a specific ask out there. And make sure the ask is appropriate and it's specific and it's telling, so people know how to help. Because when there's a 1/3 connection, people do want to help us. We just have to be really clear in terms of what that might look like. So these are some questions that I love to ask people when I'm networking. It's not an interview, right? So I don't go through every single question per se, but these are the types of questions that I like to ask people, because these are the types of questions that I love for people to ask me. So and again, this is online, but it could also be in a real room. I mean, this could be at the Princeton Library. So as I meet somebody, I'll say, very nice to meet you. And I may say, may I share a story? And I'll get into a story. What do you do for fun? I might say, you're probably spending a lot more time at home than you're used to, perhaps. So how are you making some of your time at home fun? So what do you do, or what have you done? Who do you work for, or who did you work for? How long have you worked there? Do you like what you do, or did you like what you do, and why? How are you marketing yourself now that you're in a career search? What are some of your interests? So like outside of job search stuff, right, is remember, what are your interests? Where do you look to network? Like, what are some of your best networking venues? And that's online and off. Are there podcasts or virtual meetings that you can recommend? Who would you love to meet and why? And if you like them, as in like you're in 1/3erville, how can I help you? And that's it, right? And I'll ask that if I happen to like that person, right? Tell me what I can do to help you, right? What a great networking conversation. I always know that it's a 1/3er connection when I ask a lot of these questions, and after I get the answer, the response is, how about yourself? Right? So that's how I know that it's a collaboration, and it's a we thing, not a me thing. So I hinted at this before, and somebody just posted that the sound went out. Are we good on sound, David?
I hear you. So, there's occasionally it cuts for, half a second or so. I hear you consistently. So
Good.
I see the message, the sound went out. I'm not hearing that. So it's from Barbara. Barbara, you may, maybe Barbara, try using headphones. A few other people are responding that they're hearing you. So let's keep going. Sorry, Barbara.
Okay, good. I will continue. I'm gonna cover the dynamics of this slide, and after that, I'm gonna create some space right after that for a couple of questions. So the 1/3 slide is one of my favorite slides. This is one of the most important slides, in my opinion, for not just an advisor or a sales producer, but certainly for a job seeker. Is I believe, and if I had to pick one area that I think, and I kind of set this up earlier, that a job searcher, I think, almost handicaps themselves in terms of their search, other than not being perhaps focused and diligent enough, is not having a clear target market, which I guess gets into focus, right? Is I believe as a career searcher, you must have a target market, right? Now, I have a target market in my business. It's insurance and financial services professionals, which is why that is most of my clients, right? It's done very purposefully. From a networking standpoint, I know where to go, what to say, and with whom. For a job seeker, same thing. Is I believe that you must have a target market and should be able to define, and I will get into this, with specifics, is in terms of your industry, profession, market segment, niche, dynamic, demographic, and geography. That's your target market. If you can define your target industry, profession, market segment, niche, dynamic, demographic, geography, and perhaps target companies that you are searching for, I believe you have something, right? So important to have a target market. If you're in a position where it's a type of role like human resources where it doesn't matter, in my opinion, it matters. It does. So I'm not suggesting that if opportunities come your way and they're not in your target market, that you should ignore them. What I am suggesting is from a proactive marketing networking standpoint is to be really specific and purposeful on what it is that you're looking for, right? So rather than cast a wider net, which in my experience doesn't work well, is be really deliberate, be really intentional, and go a mile deep rather than a mile wide. Target market is so important. So having said that, I want to open it up to questions. What questions do you have with regard to target marketing or the direction that I'm heading so far?
So there's one from Maria. Lately, networking has been off. I go to events thinking I'm meeting a 1/3 type men, and they are very attractive and helpful, but think that networking is the same as a dating app. Why?
Well, one of the reasons that we network is for social reasons, and I would put dating and kind of the romantic aspect of it in there, right? So I think it really comes down to being very, very clear in terms of what expectations are, and that gets into what your purpose for networking is. So if you're meeting very nice people, that's great, and there's certainly a social bent to when we network with people, but it's really about drawing a line. I don't mean like in a harsh way, unless that's where you have to go, but it's about being clear on the fact that your scope is to potentially land a job, and also being clear and asking what the scope of the connection is for others, right? There's got to be a reason for that. You know, I run into this with female financial advisors from time to time. You know, those that are younger, have a certain look, is that they'll share with me that they set a lot of sales appointments, especially before the whole pandemic thing, but yet they weren't closing a lot of business. And to me, my perception is that you were probably scheduling a lot of dates, right? Which kind of leads to that the communication wasn't clear. So it's got to be really clear about what that communication might be and exactly what you might be looking for and how you might be in a position to help others, and also what they might be looking for.
Great, thank you. Francis is asking, how do you balance the target market approach versus fear of missing out on an opportunity?
Right. You know, I'm not here to say that you may not miss out, you know, FOMO, fear of missing out. What I'm suggesting is that on my experience personally, and also having helped job searchers for over 25 years, is that I think there's just better results that come from being very, very targeted and very, very focused, because it's kind of like, you know, looking for a needle in a haystack, right? What's the chances of finding that, you know, that needle? But job search is the same thing. It's kind of like you're looking at anything, everything, something, which often equates to nothing. Or if you're looking to meet anyone, everyone, someone, it equates to no one. Having a target market dictates the people that you need to speak with, you know, what you need to say and where you need to go. So you're able to come up with a strategy. And that's really important. So as mentioned earlier, I have a lot of large financial companies as clients right now. It's because I was very diligent in focusing on those types of companies. That was really important, because what that provided is the types of clients that I truly wanted to work with and for. So done very intentionally. And job search, same thing. Most job searchers that I am helping and that I meet have no idea what they're looking for. They're just looking for a job, or they have somewhat of an idea of what they're looking for. And it's hard for me to help them because they don't really have a definitive path and may not be open to creating one. And I think that gets back into mindset.
So, okay, Amy's asking, how do you determine what industry you might want to target if you want to change from the industry you've been in for many years?
Yeah,
kind of
good.
Along the lines of your last point.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really, what is it you want to be when you grow up again? You know, I think it comes down to that. It's like, so you might have come from, let's say, telecom, you know, and you might want to get back there because there's aspects of it that you really like, or you just are truly experienced in that. And if that's the case, great, then that's your target market, or at least one of them, right? And I'm really very careful in saying that, because I don't think you should have 3, 4, 5 target markets, because it kind of defeats the purpose of having one. Like if every one is your target market, then no one is your target market. I think maybe 2 marketplaces that you're targeting should be the capacity until there's a reason to shift and focus on another one. But I think you have to have a deliberate, getting back to the question, a deliberate reason for why you're focused on specific industry, professions, market segment, niches, dynamic, demographic, geographies. Maybe it's because you're focused on ones that are hiring right now, like industries like healthcare, right? Obviously, there's a need. So if you have that type of background, you might shift the focus around healthcare because, right now, obviously, they're in need of resources. And, a lot of the IT-based, industries, same sort of thing, right? So that might be part of your strategy. So I guess my point is to have a strategy and have a reason why you're going after certain target markets, which will then matriculate into target companies. And that's really important.
Scott is asking, so what you are saying is different than everyone else. You say target networking, but I've heard for job is the who doesn't matter because it's usually the second or third connection.
I totally disagree. I disagree because I think you're going to make connections with people that are not on your target market anyway, just as a matter of we're in touch with so many people. I think having a focus is so powerful. There's so much more to gain by doing that. Absolutely. Not even a question in my mind.
Okay.
Now, here's the other thing is that the connections that you have may not already be in your target market, which might be the source of your question. So that doesn't matter. I'm not saying to abort the mission, right? And to 86 the people that are already in your market. What I am suggesting is by having a target market or by looking to create a target market, you can go back to your connections and articulate that to them as I'm looking to make connections in healthcare organizations alike and seeing how you might get introductions that way, right? So that's how you're leveraging your target market and leveraging your current connections, if that makes sense.
So Lisa's asking, when you are in a large group focused on your profession, who and how do you make the original pool of people to whittle down through the fractions?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
Guess it's when you are in a lot, and Lisa, if you want to have a follow-up, but when you're in a large group in your profession, how do you identify who to focus on? I guess find that 1/3.
Oh, right. So I don't think in that case it's finding the 1/3. I think it's finding that if you know that your target market is healthcare and you have a list of 10 companies that are in your geography, that might make that might be a good wish list for you. Like you would love to work for some of these organizations. Now it's thinking about who are the top 20, 30, 50 people in your network that might be most likely to be helpful in getting you there. So who has connections that might have a dive line into healthcare? Or if you did an advanced search on LinkedIn on, let's say, Princeton Hospital, just as for argument's sake, is who in your network has first and second tier connections into Princeton Hospital? That is, I think, a factor in determining your hit list and the people that you know and who you might have a 1/3 connection with. But you see how focused that strategy is?
Right, and it kind of goes along with you were saying earlier, know who you want to network with. Ahead of time, if you know the type of group and who may be there, you may make a list, part of your homework, of who you do specifically want to talk with. If you're going to a group and you don't know who's there, make a list of the type of people you want to talk with, and maybe that will help you as you begin to meet and talk with people. You'll speak with someone, might be a few minutes, realize this is not the type of person, and you politely move on, or you keep that person in your pocket for the future.
Yep, without a doubt. So let me just explain this slide. I love the numbers. Yep, so we're going to move right along. I'm going to cover a few more and we'll create some more space. I think these questions are excellent. So I know my 13-year-old daughter, Julia, reduces fractions these days. Apparently they do that in middle school. And now that I'm, I get more of an opportunity to help her with her homework, which is really fun. And she was reminding me about reducing the fraction. And she was saying, Daddy, if you take 4/8, you can reduce that to 2/4, and that becomes the lowest or the least common denominator, the LCD in the form of 1/2. And she reminded me, not that I didn't know how to do that, but she reminded me of a really smart concept called the lowest or least common denominator. And I really applied that to now marketing. Is I believe if you can take your target market or take your marketplace, whatever that might look like, and reduce it to the lowest or the least common denominator, you've got something there. So if you're focused on, let's just say, Fortune 500 companies, that's a great start, right? So that's 4/8. If you reduce that down, right, maybe it's Fortune 500 companies in the healthcare space. Maybe that's 2/4. in the healthcare space, in the Princeton marketplace with companies like, or organizations like Princeton Medical Center and and so on, you're now down to a half, right? So I want you to consider what your marketing looks like, who your target market might be, right? And reduce or boil it down to the lowest or least common denominator. If you want help offline, I'm happy to help you. I am not selling you anything. I love doing this stuff. And if it helps somebody that's in job search make more and better connections, I'm all about it. Reduce the fraction. All right, I want to get into something else. It's kind of a big concept here. It's a big distinction. Some of you that know me in this meeting, that have followed me and been in other meetings with me, you kind of know this, right? But this is so important, is I want to set up a conversation around my favorite strategy geared towards communication. And it's really a variation of the elevator speech, right? And I've been talking about this stuff for 25 years. I mean, literally, I have. Right? So I have this graphic up because, well, one is that this concept gets licensed to corporate offices and financial services organizations. So that one image is what my online program looks like. So it's round 11, create your elevator speech, and there's a whole online thing to it. And the other side of it is you'll notice that's a Rutgers logo, as I'm a professor at Rutgers University on Monday nights, and it was, of course, online now. And I teach a public speaking class. And I teach my networking concepts in my public speaking class because these students, most of whom are undergrads, need to know how to network to land an internship and land a job. And they barely know how to talk to people. And I'm not even kidding, right? Because I have kids. I know it's all texting, tweeting, twitting. So it's a different mindset, and I have to bring them back into. At the end of the day, it's about the connection. And so I teach them my elevator speech concept called the PEEC Statement. I've been talking about this for years, and they get this on the midterm, they get this on the final, they have to know theirs cold, in which case, as the professor, I tell them where to go, what to say, and with whom. They come back to the class not only overcoming their fear of public speaking, or at least minimizing it, they start sharing about connections that they made in terms of internships and jobs. And I watch that happen before my very eyes. So if that's not a compelling story to lead into this, I don't know what is, right? We're talking about 18 and 19-year-olds, right? So here we are now, and it's serious. And I don't have a 15-week semester to build some accountability around it. But what I want to do is build some structure about what I call the PEEC Statement. And the PEEC Statement it's an acronym, and it stands for your profession, expertise, environments, and call to action. So when somebody asks you either online or off what it is that you do or what it is that you're looking to do, this could help you set up that really specific, clear, crisp conversation. So let me highlight this, and then I'll show you what an example looks like. So profession. Who you are and perhaps how you help, and maybe what you do or what you're looking to do perhaps, right? So if I was in career transition right now, and let's say my field is training and development, which it is, if somebody were to ask me, what brings me here or what I do, I would say something like, I'm a training and development professional in transition right now, focus on landing a job in healthcare. That might be something that I say. How about yourself? Right? So now I flip that around. So now it becomes a back and forth. The expertise gets into what you know. So if they say, so what's your background? I can come back and say, and I usually express it in threes, I would say my expertise is in the areas of, and I'll just say networking, referrals, and recruiting. Those are my big three. How about yourself, I might ask. So if it's a healthcare professional, they may say the 2 or 3 areas that their expertise is with regard to healthcare, right? Whatever that is. Environments is your target or niche market, as I spoke about before. So if they say, well, you mentioned healthcare, what are you focused on? Well, I might say, well, I'm looking for organizations in the healthcare vertical in the greater Princeton area, organizations like Princeton Medical Center, the hospital, and yada, yada, right? So I list 2 or 3. So now there's a complete image of what it is that I'm looking for. And now, in terms of my ask, and I'll say ultimately when I'm networking, I'm always looking to meet or be introduced to healthcare professionals that are in the administrative ranks that might have a connection within some of the Princeton healthcare organizations I mentioned. Any advice you have, I'd be thrilled to learn more. So you see how that could be very, very collaborative and back and forth, but notice how focused that is, man. It's laser-like. So here's an example of what this might look like. And by the way, if you're in meetings like this one, where somebody asks, so you get 30 seconds or a minute to talk about yourself and deliver your elevator speech, the PEEC statement can be that too. So here's an example. I'm a financial professional, I should say, in transition, focused on working as a banker in the private equity space. My expertise is in the areas of investment analysis, accounting, and financial planning. So those could be the big three. I'm focused on working for firms like ABC Partners and XYZ Equity Group. I'm always looking to meet or be introduced to CPAs, bankers, and financial planners. Any advice, insight, recommendations you have as to how I might make a connection like this would be great. Now, it's a little lengthy, right? But you kind of get the gist, right? So I'm not suggesting that you memorize a script. What I am suggesting is really embrace, understand, and own these 4 concepts. If you are clear on what your profession is, or what you want your profession to be, or where you're coming from and where you might want to go, your expertise, again, not lengthy, 2 or 3 items, that's it. The environments in terms of your target market, I can't emphasize that more, and your call to action, specifically what you want, I'm telling you that's powerful. And if you're really clever, you're getting this from other people that you're networking with too. Remember, it's a 2-way street. So I wouldn't say, well, what's your PEEC statement, right? But as you're getting into dialogue, how about yourself? Tell me something about you. So imagine how powerful it is to exchange PEEC statements with people and to go back and forth and talk about how you can help one another, right? In that whole 1/3 space. Even really more important, perhaps, is that if you're really clever, this is a marketing plan. Like if you own something like this, all of a sudden it should occur to you about the places that you need to go, online or off, what you need to say, and with whom you need to say it. And that's networking. So I know this is a mouthful here, and I see some chat activity going on. David, let me rely on you to let's work on that.
Okay, let's see.
And David, what is my end time? What's my final end time today?
Somewhere before 11:30. I mean, I think we've got plenty of time.
Okay, good. As long as we have time.
It's really a couple of comments. Let's see. Just want to read this. So you bring up an idea. When writing the PEEC statement, might it be better to break it into 4 distinct statements rather than 1 paragraph?
It could be. It's not a script per se. It's more of a framework. You can write it however you want. I just put it like this just because, in some cases you need kind of to have the whole component together. But to your point, when you're speaking to people in a regular conversation, I wouldn't suggest rattling like a whole blurb out here because number one, it puts pressure on you. Like I could do that. I could rattle this off right now. I could rattle my version off the top of my head. But the reason I can do that is because not because it's memorized, but because I know the pillars of profession, expertise, environment, and call to action so well that I'm able to speak to that. But to your point, the real conversation, yes, you want to break it up. But if I was going to ask David, right, David, very nice to meet you. So what brings you here? He's going to probably say something along the lines of profession, right? So it may not be like this, but he'll say, how about yourself? But then I'll just cover profession. I'm a training and development professional in transition. I've got a healthcare background, but I've got an eye on IT. How about yourself? See how I just covered profession and I turned it back to David as if I was having a real conversation.
It's very interesting that you framed it that way. A lot of groups like ours do have elevator pitches. They could be 30 seconds. Well, we have 100 people, 30-second elevator pitches will be there an hour. So we do 5-second introductions. That's what we practice, which is kind of like that first part that you just talked about, that introduction piece. The rest of it, maybe the other 3 pieces, that could be now that you've engaged with each other, you can go into it a bit more.
Well, so watch this, right? So what is the time frame? A 5-second intro, or was it 30?
Well, we call it 5-second introductions. Once people cross 10, I get a little antsy.
Yeah, well, think about this. So here's my 10-second introduction. So I'm a training and development professional in transition, focused on the healthcare industry, and I'm looking for connections in the greater Princeton area to those that might be in that healthcare space. I just covered the whole thing.
Yep.
Right.
And then now that you've right, so terrific.
Right. So the whole thing is that once you know the framework, you can articulate it and tailor it any way you want. Remember earlier we said it's all about your communication. It's about the questions you ask, how you talk about yourself, and your follow-up and saying and touch strategy. So it's, again, mindset. It's about thinking like a networker. If I had only 10 seconds, I'd get this done in 10 seconds, right? So this is a framework, not a script. So think of it as a PowerPoint slide, and in your mind, you're copying and pasting it as you need to in a conversation.
Good, good. So let's move on. That's it for the questions right now.
Good, good, good. All right. So here are my rules to the PEEC statement. So I'm a boxer by trade, right? I still compete when I'm allowed to. Now it's virtual, so it's way easier. But so I'm into movies like Fight Club, and there's rules of Fight Club, right? We don't talk about Fight Club is rule number 1. Rule number 2 is we do not talk about Fight Club, but we do talk about the PEEC statement. And these are some of my rules in terms of making sure that your PEEC statement is spot on. Is that you have to be asked. Like, you can't just pitch your PEEC statement and say, hi, my name is Arlene, profession, expertise, environments, call to action. My name is Richard. You can't just meet people and hit them with a full-on PEEC statement, right? Earlier, I mentioned you got to open with a story. You got to be collaborative, conversational. But there's 3 exceptions to being able to lead with your PEEC statement, right? So other than being asked, right, here's the 3 exceptions is if you're speaking at a meeting. So if you're leading a webinar, right, or leading some sort of meeting, your PEEC statement can really be your intro. So when David gave me an intro, on some level, it was really a PEEC statement. Or if you're in a meeting like David described, where you only have 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute to do the intro, right? In which case now it's set up because the platform lends itself to that. And finally, the last exception to the you have to be asked rule is if you have a great relationship, let's call it a 1/3 relationship with somebody, where I can just very easily say, David, can I bounce something off of you? And he'll say, sure, what's going on? Profession, expertise, environments, call to action. Any advice, insight, recommendations you have in terms of how I can make a connection like that, I would love your perspective. And guess what? I'll get it. Right? So you have to be asked, but there's 3 exceptions. You're speaking or leading a meeting. You're in a meeting that avails you of a 30-second or a 1 minute or a 5-second or whatever it is intro, or you already have a 1/3 based relationship where you can just be bold and just say, can I bounce something off of you? Second rule, got to be short, sweet, and to the point. It should not be a 1-hour diatribe. What I am doing is a 1-hour diatribe. That should not be the PEEC statement. It's got to be specific. You must generate airtime. By airtime, and I'm being cute here, AIR is an acronym: advice, insight, recommendations. Remember I mentioned that earlier, right? Advice, insight, recommendations. It's got to have some form of airtime, in which case you're creating a call to action. Like there's got to be an ask somewhere, but it can't be too bold. Do not compromise your niche. So big into target marketing, right? So you can't keep, in my opinion, you shouldn't keep changing your target market depending on who you're speaking with. That's not having a target market. So own your niche or 2. If there's a reason to change it for strategic reasons moving forward, that's a different story. You must use with prospects, perhaps clients or associates, that's appropriate. It might be former employers as appropriate, advocates, centers of influence. Let's just call that your 1/3 connection that have a dotted line into your target market. Remember, PEEC is a we thing, not a me thing. It should be an exchange of information. 1 per customer. You're the customer. You should, in my opinion, and I know people have differing opinions on this, in my opinion, you should only have 1 resume. That's my opinion. You might nip and tuck and tweak it here and there, from time to time. But for the most part, you should have 1 resume. That's my opinion. It's the same thing as a PEEC statement, as I believe that you should just have 1 PEEC statement. You shouldn't have 1 for healthcare, 1 for consumer products, 1 for pharma. It gets confusing and it's going to evaporate. Your PEEC statement is not a sales pitch. It's not to set an appointment so you can sell your stuff, right? The I in AIR is advice, insight and recommendation. So I saw that question. And finally, own your own voice. It's not about memorizing a script. It is about being a first-rate version of yourself, not a second-rate version of me or anybody else. It's about, in your own way, articulating your version of a PEEC statement, which might start off looking like something like this, or in 4 components, maybe it's 4 bullet points. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to deliver it in a very clear, articulate, comfortable way that's not lengthy, that's very focused, so people can understand. Remember, networking, like boxing, is about the connection. And by having a clear PEEC statement and a clear strategy, you'll get it. Yes, insight. All right. These are some more rules of networking. I'm going to just kind of go through this. I want to create another space for questions, and then I want to get into more of the virtual stuff to apply this, because that's really the nature of this whole thing. So exchange contact info, utilize LinkedIn is another rule, especially now. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail in a moment. Keep focused on the conversation, no multitasking. So this is when you're networking with people, is to not be multitasking, right? Be very focused. I know it's very challenging. I love to multitask too, right? But I try to stay very present with my conversations. Terminate conversations politely. I think that's really important, especially with virtual meetings, because we're having way more virtual meetings than we've ever had, right? So people, I think, are really pressed for time. And it's advice, insight, recommendations. Advice, insight, recommendations. I'm responding to a post. Is airtime. Advice, insight. So what advice, insight, recommendations do you have in terms of how I might make a connection like that? You're welcome, Dominic. Take the initiative to follow up. Have a goal, a plan, next steps. Am I preaching to my PEEC statement or what? It's a we thing, not a me thing. It's got to be collaborative. Develop trust. Oh, this is really important. So somebody mentioned stalking before, right? So stalking. Stalking means that there is not a trusting relationship, right? Like a 1/3 type deal. And this is not my invention. This is not my phrase, right? So this is, I think, Stephen Covey's stuff, is that we have to, really connecting is about knowing, liking, and trusting, right? And it happens in that order. When we connect with somebody, we're getting to know one another, K-N-O-W, know. Over time, hopefully, they like us and we like one another. And over some more time, there's trust. In order for there to be a great collaborative, fruitful, 1/3 type of networking relationship, there has to be this place of trust. And when we're in a place of trust, it's not about stalking. It shouldn't feel like you're hunting to find people. And finally, try to have fun, right? It's got to be a fun element to this, even though the reasons that we might be doing this at the end of the day, are not fun. There's COVID statistics on TV all the time. Clearly, job search is not a fun thing, but try to have fun in your connections. It's got to be positive, not negative. So having said all that, let me create some space for a couple of questions, and then I'll move on.
So Nancy is asking, what can you say to terminate conversations politely?
Well, good question. So if you have a scheduled meeting, let's just call it a Zoom meeting, and it's set up for 30 minutes, right? You want to be mindful of that 30-minute window. So now it's established that there's a 30-minute time frame. So right at the, and I do this myself, the beginning of meetings, I'll say, Nancy, this is great. I appreciate your time. I know we're set up at 30 minutes. Does that work? I want to just make sure this works and that we're within a 30-minute time frame. If it's a Zoom meeting and time frame hasn't been established, or it's a phone call, I would still set it up with, thank you very much. What's your time frame look like? I want to be sensitive to your schedule, right? So now if it's about ending a conversation, then it's really like, listen, I want to be sensitive to your time. Let me let you go. I'm happy to follow up on such and such and so and where, because there are people that do like to talk and talk and talk. So in which case, it's really about being polite to try to terminate the conversation. There's a good friend of mine named Robert, who I love him. He's older. He's older Jewish guy. For whatever reason, older Jewish men love me. I don't know what it is, but he'll talk to me forever. So I'll say something like, and I have a 1/3 connection with him. And I'll say, Robert, I could talk to you forever, but I got to hop. I look forward to discussing, and we'll speak soon. If it's face to face, that's when it's a question of winding the conversation down. So that's when I'll say something like, well, Nancy, I could talk to you forever, but let me just highlight next steps. This way I can let you go and we can talk to more people, or we could reconnect. But it also depends on why we're ending the conversation. Are we ending the conversation because it's a good conversation, but it's over? Or are we ending the conversation because we're not the one, but somebody else is? Or are we ending the conversation because it's a we're in two-thirderville and it ain't a good conversation? So that's important, Nancy, because that determines how we're going to end it.
And she had a follow-up. How do you do it in person? It sounds very similar.
Yeah, I saw that. And that's kind of what I'm responding to.
Okay.
But my response is, what's the scenario?
And so William's asking, by taking the initiative to follow up, does that mean you suggest the next contact time?
Yes, provided there is a reason to follow up. So I like to own follow up. I like to take it off the other person because it shows that I'm interested and I'm creating ownership, and it's just a good leadership quality. So I will own that follow up, and I don't do this with every conversation because every conversation is not 1/3, and every conversation doesn't lend itself to a follow up, right? So if there is, right, I'll say something like, and I talk about this. So these are the 4 phases of networking. Preparing for an event, presenting yourself at an event where you're meeting people, asking questions. And I talk about setting the follow-up up in the presentation phase. So if I'm just speaking to Nancy, who I feel like I really know because I see her in meetings like this, so if I wanted to follow up with Nancy, I would set that up right there in our conversation in the presentation phase. I'd say, Nancy, I could talk to you forever, and I probably could. But she's always smiling and laughing. And I'll say, let me just take this on. I promise to follow up with you over the next day or so to get you this information, to reset a meeting, to reconnect, to explore how that might happen, that sort of thing. So I will own the follow-up. If it's a scenario where, let's just say I'm speaking to Nancy and it's just not a great connection, for a multitude of, it happens, right? 2/3 of the time. So I'm not going to have that conversation for very long with Nancy. Probably no more than 2, 3, 4 minutes. I'm never going to be rude. I'm always going to be respectful and professional. I'll say, Nancy, Nancy, it was good speaking with you. Let me know if there's something that I can do to help you at this meeting. Otherwise, good luck today, and I look forward to seeing you again. And I'll shake a hand, provided we're allowed to do that. And that's it. And that would be it. So that wouldn't even get into follow-up, but it would get into, Nancy, terminating the conversation. Did I answer that question? Other questions? Great, thanks, Nancy. Great question.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Okay, moving right along. All right, so the rest of where I want to go is more of the virtual stuff. I'm going to speak very quickly because I'm looking at the clock, but if you have questions, post them, and I promise I'll answer them. So knockout approaches to virtual networking. This is my take on best practices around, some of this is not relevant, so I may not cover all of this. Like podcasts may not be as relevant, webinars, we'll see where it goes. So emails, virtual meetings, social media, blogs and articles, webinars, podcasts, and phone calls. Here we go. So best practices around email. I get so many questions about this, and not just from job searchers, but from financial advisor clients that, again, we send emails and receive. I mean, we're probably sending and receiving more emails now than we ever did, right? I mean, we just probably did, right? So I think it's really important to make sure that our emails lend themselves to getting responded to, and especially from people that we don't have a 1/3 connection with or not a 1/3 connection with yet. I think it's important to have an engaging subject line. I've got a sample of this, so hang tight. Have an engaging subject line. Come from a place of we. One of the reasons why people don't respond to emails that we're trying to make connections with is because it's not perceived that it's a place of we. It's a place. It's coming from a place of me, as in you. Send it personally. Try not to have others do it on your behalf. And again, probably more on a business front than a personal front right now. Make your message a bit personal, not too personal, right? But a bit personal. Keep it short, sweet, and to the point. Do not make it a mass mailing, although I know we do our fair share of copies and pastes. And initiate a call to action. Like there can't be like okay, so what, right? People have to kind of know what you might be looking for or what it is that you're asking for. Okay, so here is a sample of what that might look like. And I send emails like this to people. I'm not saying it's the end all and be all, but it is for me. So here's my subject line. Hi, Sam. I always put the person's name right there, right? So, hi, Sam, let's reconnect. That's my purpose. So the purpose right there should have a mutual connotation to it, right there in the subject line, right? So it also suggests that I know Sam or did know Sam. Hello, Sam. I hope you and your family are healthy and safe. Pretty appropriate right now, right? But I'm also being genuine because I hope they are. I'm sorry it's been so long since we've spoken. It's been a while since I've been to Boston. That's my personal deal, right? Would be great to schedule a call or Zoom to catch up and explore ways we might help one another. You see how it's coming from a place of we? I even have the word we in there. So it's not like connect so you can help me. Like, how can we help one another? Here's my call to action. Please let me know when you might have some time over the next week. Looking forward to coordinating. Love and kisses, Michael. Warm regards, Michael. Very simple, right? But it hits all the points. And when I write emails like that, they typically get returned, right? Because there's a win-win deal to it, which lends itself to setting up a Zoom meeting or a phone meeting, right? There's still an app for the phone. Phones still make phone calls, by the way, as I joke with my kids, right? But I want to make sure that my meeting also has this tone of a personal flair, concern for health and safety, and collaboration, how we might help one another, right? So that's my take on email correspondence. There's also virtual meetings. So virtual meetings, like, I know webinars are examples of virtual meetings, but I mean virtual meetings in terms of like one-on-ones, or maybe parties of 3 where you're all kind of brainstorming and networking, right? Make sure you have a good wireless connection as you might, right? Be mindful about space and background. You want your space and background to be as professional as possible. Like there shouldn't be, piles of stuff laying around and kids running around and dogs, right? Minimize distractions. Keep the conversation very focused. So you want to definitely have respect for people's time. Try not to multitask again. And then finally, utilize LinkedIn. One of my favorite strategies is when I'm setting up a networking meeting is to do a screen share with LinkedIn and look at connections that I might be interested in meeting and also offering that to those that I'm speaking with. And there's some preparation in that. So if I'm meeting with Nancy and it's a networking based meeting, I might let her know these are 5 types of people that I'm looking for. And I was on your LinkedIn, and these are 5 people that I think would really, could really help me. I want you to do the same. Look at 5 connections on my LinkedIn profile and my connections that you think would be helpful to you. Once we get on our Zoom, we'll compare notes, and I'd like to determine, how well you know them, right, and how you might introduce me, and I will do the same as well, right? So now you're utilizing 2 platforms. It's very focused, and it's very collaborative. In essence, you're kind of vetting one another's connections. Pretty good. You know what it costs? Nothing. And these are tools that we had at our fingertips for years, right? So now it's a question of being clever about how we are utilizing it. Social media. So let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I know you've heard of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social media of choice for business. You know that. There's 3 components to LinkedIn. Most people don't use this in a strategic way, in my opinion, right? So I look at LinkedIn in 3 components. There's your posting, there's your connecting, and there's your relating or engaging. Posting, connecting, relating. Posting is, and job searchers often don't know what to post. So I would say post a trend, post a quote, post a business best practice, post something that is post-worthy and that's valuable, right? So get in the habit of posting every day, right? I think every business day post something, because those that look like they're active on LinkedIn tend to be more attractive on LinkedIn. And as David mentioned before, by being more active on LinkedIn, you tend to be more connectable as well. So get into a habit of posting. Connecting with people, that's DMing, that's direct messaging people, using a very similar approach to my email, is make it collaborative, make it a we thing. It'll be a lot less, it'll be a lot briefer, right? But do all that with your direct messaging and make it collaborative, and you will get more people that connect with you and that may potentially want to meet on a Zoom or on a call. And finally, relating is liking people. Maybe that top 50 list that we spoke about before. Liking, commenting, relating, sharing, building a relationship and cultivating a connection with those that are most important for you to cultivate those connections with. Minimize look at me posts, right? It's not Facebook. And I don't even like look at me posts on Facebook, but that's another story. Add value. Make sure that what you're posting is valuable. Make sure it's interesting. Make sure it's intriguing. Use LinkedIn every business day. Focus on your target market. Follow those in your target market that are active. So if you have a focus on the healthcare industry, you want to follow people that are very active on LinkedIn that are in the healthcare industry. If they're active on LinkedIn, it means that they're connected, and it means they're more likely to be open to connecting with people that are true networkers like you. Have a goal and a plan, target market, PEEC statement, follow up, we thing, not a me thing, and even feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't already. The phone is still a thing. Everyone has a preferred way of communicating. Some people do prefer the phone, even today. So have an understanding of how people prefer to communicate. If people call you on a regular basis, make sure that when you're communicating with them, that you're using the phone as well, right? So the phone is still a thing. I find that more people are answering phones right now because I think in many ways we're being zoomed out, right? Or go to meeting out, where a phone call in some cases is kind of refreshing. Like you don't need to find a link. And develop a system for making calls. My favorite way of making phone calls, and I mean in this day and age, I mean today with the pandemic, is I try to take a break in the middle of my day. I got a pretty big truck that I love to drive, and I'll go someplace nearby and I make my calls in an hour when I'm away from my office. So now it forces me to make the phone calls that I want to make and that I need to make. And all this stuff I'm going to go by. But grab hold of your schedule. I'm going to just say this. I'm going to open it up to questions, and then we'll put some closure around this. Is grab hold of your schedule. Create a model week. Like every Monday, what are you doing? Every Tuesday, and so on. Or split your days up, where half of your day, your morning is devoted to LinkedIn work, and your afternoon is devoted to research and follow up. So if you create a model week and start to create a schedule, you'll start to get into a routine and start to feel more structure in your approach. Consider when your high energy time of the day is. I'm super early morning, 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm fired up and I'm getting my work done. And I take on my most difficult tasks early in the morning. Block time in your calendar to get stuff done. Assign numbers to your daily goals. So if you have a list of 3 or 4 things that you must get done on any given day, number it. Like, what's your top priority? So number it 1, 2, 3, and 4, so at least you get your most important goals done. Set a 90-day goal. Like, where do you want to be and what do you want to be doing in the next 3 months? What does that look like? And what do you need to do every day, all day, every day to make that happen, which gets into developing a daily fight plan. Boxers do that. When they're scheduling themselves for a fight, they got a fight coming up, they've got a daily training plan. What's your daily fight plan? Let me grab a drink. I'm going to open it up to questions and put the finishing touches on.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions. One from Grant. If you were just connecting with someone for the first time, would you recommend a phone call or Zoom?
You mean if I was just reaching out to them cold?
He wasn't more specific. We'll have to see if he gets back. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the context of the question. Next question.
Yeah. Oops, scroll down. When you say to post every day on LinkedIn, are we supposed to look for articles or author one each day as a post?
You could offer articles. It should be short. It should be very brief, though. It should be short, sweet, to the point. And it probably shouldn't be job search related articles. It should probably be articles related to your target market, or related to your background. Right? Because it's about adding value, right? So you want to put something out there that others are going to find valuable. It shouldn't be lengthy white papers or anything like that, but it could be blurbs, it could be blogs, it could be copies and pastes of stuff, right? But just make sure that it's valuable, and it should have a purpose because you want the people that you're looking to connect with in your target industry and ultimately your target market to find what you are posting of interest so you can continue to cultivate those connections.
Yeah, I guess keep in mind it's a we thing, not a me thing.
Correct.
Let's see. William had a follow-up to Kathleen's question. Does liking and commenting make you active on LinkedIn?
It makes you more active. LinkedIn likes when you like and comment, but if you like something, that's great because now you are connected to some, to their connections just by liking them, right? So now more people that are in that strand, in that dialogue, are now going to be following you potentially. But by commenting, you're looking to get engagement. So by making a specific comment, you're more likely for them to comment back or at least like your comment. The whole deal is you don't want to like just for like's sake, right? Click, click, click. You want to be able to engage certain people, and by liking and making comments, like David, great post. Looking forward to your next post with regard to the healthcare and blah blah blah. Right. So now you're going to get some engagement.
What tool do you suggest for the 90-day plan? Is it spreadsheets?
I use some spreadsheets. I typically have a Word doc. I go simple and I have an actual template that I call my daily fight plan that I use for clients. And the top of the daily fight plan is my 90-day goal, followed with all the things that I believe I need to do every day. I don't mean like for 8 hours. I mean for 30 to 45 minutes every day to be able to hit my goal. So I just have a one sheet for that to help me articulate that. It could just be a legal pad. It could just be a Word doc that you create, put your 90-day goal up there, and then create the 5, 6, 7 action steps that you need to take on every single day that you think are going to be footprints to get you closer to that 90-day goal.
Douglas is asking, what is your LinkedIn connection info? So if you have a slide
I'm going to
later.
say, Douglas, find it. Go find it.
Michael Goldberg.
Yeah. Do a search, find me.
Yeah, you can find. And if you need help connecting, I can help you with that later also.
Yeah.
All right, so as we wrap up, get into it.
All right, good. So here's the big close. This is great. I covered a lot, I think. So hopefully, and this is kind of an example of what a daily fight plan might look like, right? So review your 90-day goals, one post on LinkedIn. Like this might be an example of something I would do every day. One post on LinkedIn and or other social media, right, and so on, right? So these are all very actionable things aimed at a 90-day goal. Contact 5, direct message new people in my target market. 5 first connections in my target market. Accomplish at least one important item. Schedule at least one virtual meeting and so on. Then I try to do something fun, right, in an hour, right? So I think what I've shared is very actionable. I've shared a boatload of information, right? And luckily you've asked questions, which is great. Get my book. Again, I'm not here to pitch the book, but I am here to pitch being serious about your strategy and serious about accomplishing something and being actionable. And, all the best laid plans tend to be put to rest because of ourselves. Mike Tyson, my favorite boxer, there's rumors of him coming back. I don't think it'll happen, right? Is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And you'll notice Tyson is not connecting with the mouth there, right? So it's true. Is that usually we get off of meetings like webinars and things like that. We're overwhelmed with information. We've got all the best laid intentions in place, but then we do nothing. And that just happens all the time. And in essence, we punch ourselves in the mouth in the form of apathy, in the form of complacency, right? So I'm going to suggest don't do that. If you can take an idea or two, something I shared or somebody else shared, that you can apply today, do that. And if one of those action items are reach out to me on LinkedIn, if there's something that I can help you with, I am happy to do it. I'm putting it out there. The reason I'm putting it out there is not that I want 80 or 90 people to reach out to me right now on LinkedIn. I don't, but I know that most of you won't. So I feel bold in being able to put this out there is take an action step. Make this worth your time. And if I could be a resource in any way, it would be my privilege and pleasure to be in your corner. It is Friday morning. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have an awesome weekend. Good luck in your search and be healthy and safe, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Wow, terrific, Michael. Thank you very much. I like that you wrapped up here with Mike Tyson. Every once in a while I'm on YouTube and I watch some of the Mike Tyson's greatest hits videos. Those are typically his one-round boxing matches. So yeah. Wasn't an impressive fighter, and he was a good actor.
First-round knockouts, yes.
Yep. So, but this program was actually very well thought out, very thorough. It was just terrific. A great, not only overview, but a good way to deep dive into the importance and value and way to network smarter and not just be online. When you do your job searching online, the job boards and such, the effective rate of that is only about 15 or 20%. Really, you're going to get to know people better, and that's the way you're going to be more effective. I like the comment about being massively in service to others. It's something, for those of you that know me, that's kind of what I do. It's a we thing, not a me thing. It's not about just what you want. And, underlying it is, we know that, but outwardly it just can't be. You really have to give to get. Think about the people you're most willing to help. You're most willing to help people that have helped you. So be on the other side of that. There's a business networking group, it's called BNI, a few of you may know, and their catchphrase or their motto, givers gain. So those people who give are the ones that gain the most. And I also liked how you kind of framed out and discussed the PEEC statement. You can even take that and post that on LinkedIn as a means of introducing yourself to the 1,540 people in our LinkedIn group. And there must be other LinkedIn groups and Yahoo groups, Breakfast Club of New Jersey and other groups, where you can post that and begin to facilitate an introduction. People will read it and a couple people will respond, and you'll begin easy way to begin a relationship. So I think that becomes really good for a lot of us. So just want to, before we officially close down, let you know of a couple things that are also coming up. So we are meeting virtually each week right now. I'm so glad we're able to do that. Next week is May 22nd, and we have as our presenter Amy Raditz from Lee Hecht Harrison. She's one of the facilitators at the Princeton office. And she will be here next week. Who Am I Anyway? That is her program, and she'll talk about how to discover and communicate and leverage our unique talents and qualities and those that set us apart from others in the job search. So I'm so glad Amy is coming back. A little bit of a secret, if you don't know Amy, she was a professional singer. She may sing virtually as well. So she has before in person. Hopefully she will in our presentation next week. And so that's next week. And then the 29th, May 29th, Beth Fitzgerald, the life coach, will be back. And she's going to talk about an incredibly timely program, how to reduce stress naturally. It's one thing to go through job search, and that's a hard enough process that gets old, and there's a lot of stress, both personally and maybe even with our family. But now that we're in a little bit of a social distancing and a lockdown situation, it probably exasperates that for some of us. So she's going to have a great program, how to reduce stress naturally. So that's what's coming up with PSG of Mercer County over the next 2 weeks. The Breakfast Club of New Jersey is also meeting, and they meet every second Saturday of the month. Their next meeting is going to be on June 13th. Eileen Sinnett is going to be talking about body language for job seekers, so that'll be a terrific program. So you can go to thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com for more information. Our cousin organization, PSG of Central New Jersey, they meet on Mondays at 10:30, and to get their program, you can go to psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. Careers in Transition, they're also meeting virtually on the first and third Saturday of each month at 8:30 in the morning. You will need to Google Careers in Transition Short Hills. You'll get to the web page on the Christchurch website. Their meetings are hosted there to get that information. So once again, want to thank Michael. This was wonderful. I'm so glad that we've got connected. I'm glad that I was able to participate as well. Our video will be available later this afternoon. Michael will be sending me this slide deck later this afternoon. I'll post that as well. So look this afternoon or this evening. You again are welcome to join our LinkedIn group. And remember, we do have a YouTube channel. So our video with Michael, his presentation will be there as well. So I want to thank Michael again. Thank you so much. This was terrific. I'm so glad you were able to do this for us. Really appreciate it, and want to wish everybody a good day and a good week. Stay safe, stay inside, and we will see you again soon online. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.